I think I'm too young to be tied down, she said, stirring her coffee like she was rehearsing freedom. I need to explore my options. I remember the sound of that sentence more than the words, the soft finality in her tone, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. After 3 years together, Lily decided she was suddenly too young for commitment. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just looked at her across that cafe table and said calmly, "Explore away." Her eyes widened like she expected a fight. Maybe she wanted me to plead, to promise to wait while she figured herself out. But I'd already spent years being patient, waiting for her to choose me completely. That day, I stopped waiting. When she packed her things that night, she cried, "This isn't goodbye forever, right? I just need time." I nodded, though deep down something inside me shut off. "Take all the time you need," I said. The door closed behind her, and the silence that followed was deafening, but strangely, it didn't hurt as much as I expected. It just felt clean. For the first few weeks, I kept expecting her to text, to check in, to ask if I was okay. She didn't. Instead, her social media filled with photos, nights out, new friends, captions like "finding myself again." It stung. Not because I missed her, but because I realized she'd never really been lost. She just didn't want to find herself with me. So I started my own kind of exploration. I went to the gym, took weekend trips, focused on my career, even started reading again things I hadn't done when my world revolved around her moods. 6 months later, I wasn't just healing, I was thriving. Then, one Friday evening, my phone buzzed. "Hey stranger, can we talk?" Her name on the screen felt foreign. I stared at it for a moment before replying. "Sure." We met at the same cafe where she'd ended things. She walked in, nervous but smiling. "You look different," she said softly. "I am," I replied. She took a breath. "I made a mistake. I thought I needed to explore, but I just needed you." Her eyes shimmered like she expected me to melt. Instead, I leaned back, folded my arms, and said, "I don't need you anymore." Her smile cracked, confusion flickering into panic. "You don't mean that." I meant every word. And from that moment, the chaos began. Before everything fell apart, Lily and I were the couple people envied. College sweethearts who stuck together after graduation, navigating first jobs, late-night ramen dinners, and shared dreams about someday. We talked about moving in together, maybe even marriage until. She started using words like stuck and routine. It began subtly. She'd sigh when I mentioned weekend plans, scroll through her phone at dinner, or tell me stories about coworkers who lived spontaneously. I'd laugh it off, pretending it didn't sting, but deep down I knew I was losing her piece by piece. Lily had always needed attention. She glowed under it. Compliments from strangers, likes on her posts, even casual flirting. I used to think it was harmless. Until she started asking questions like, "Do you ever wonder if we settled too young?" That was the first red flag. Still, I loved her. I convinced myself it was just a phase, that she'd grow out of her uncertainty. So I gave her space, listened when she complained about feeling trapped, and reminded her that exploring didn't mean abandoning. But she didn't want reassurance. She wanted excitement. When she finally said she wanted to explore her options, I realized she'd already made her choice long before she said the words. The breakup wasn't sudden, it was the conclusion of 1,000 quiet withdrawals. The weeks after she left were strange. I'd find her toothbrush still in the holder, her sweater on my chair, her favorite mug untouched on the counter. Every object screamed temporary absence, not goodbye. But time changed that. Slowly, her things became just things, and the silence became peace. I started noticing how much I'd sacrificed plans, hobbies, even friendships to keep her happy. My life had revolved around her emotional weather, and for the first time I was learning to stand still, without waiting for another storm. Meanwhile, I'd see glimpses of her new adventures, online road trips, parties, laughter that looked staged. One post read, "Learning to live life on my terms." The irony wasn't lost on me. Her version of freedom looked exhausting. While she was out rediscovering herself, I was rediscovering peace. Picked up running again, joined a volunteer group, started sleeping better. People noticed the difference. Even my mom said, "You look lighter, son." 6 months passed. I hadn't reached out once. Then, out of nowhere, she texted. When we met again, it was surreal, like facing a ghost that once haunted me. She spoke about regret, about realizing the options she'd explored weren't what she thought they'd be. I listened quietly, but inside, something had shifted. The version of me she'd left no longer existed because love doesn't survive on nostalgia. It needs respect, and she'd spent hers. What she didn't know yet was that I'd already found closure long before she came looking for it. After that first awkward coffee, Lily started texting more often. At first it was casual memes, just checking in, little nostalgia hooks. Then it turned into late-night messages like, "I miss us." I didn't reply much. I'd moved on, but she clearly hadn't. A week later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in the hallway holding takeout from our favorite Thai place, smiling like nothing had happened. "I brought dinner," she said, "just like old times." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to turn her away, but curiosity won. "Sure," I said. "Come in." The moment she stepped inside, it was like she was trying to reclaim old territory, dropping her bag on the couch, humming as she unpacked food, glancing at photos on the wall. "Ah, you've redecorated," she said, pretending it was casual. "Yeah," I replied. Felt like time for a change. She smiled faintly. "It looks nice. Different." We ate in silence for a few minutes before she finally spoke. "I thought about you a lot," she said softly, "about what we had." I didn't answer right away. I'd spent months healing from her absence. Now she wanted to reopen a wound she'd caused herself. "I don't blame you," I said finally. "You did what you thought you needed." Her eyes searched mine. "But you still care, right?" I met her gaze. "I care about the memory of us. But I don't think I care about being with you anymore." She flinched. "You don't mean that?" I leaned back. "You're the one who left, Lily. You said you needed to explore. I gave you space to do that. So tell me, did you find what you were looking for?" Her lip trembled slightly. "No," she whispered. "I found out what I lost." There it was, the confession. The same person who'd once said she needed freedom was now begging for familiarity. I stood up, walked to the counter, and poured myself a glass of water. "You didn't lose me," I said calmly. "You just taught me to live without you." She stared at me like I'd just spoken a language she didn't understand. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted. She was the one reaching, and I was the one standing still. When she left that night, she lingered at the door. "I'll call you," she said quietly. "Don't," I replied. Her expression hardened, a flicker of pride trying to mask panic. "You'll regret this, Mark." But as I watched her walk down the hallway, I realized something she hadn't yet. The person who leaves always assumes the other will wait, and when they come back to find you've stopped waiting, that's when chaos truly begins. Lily didn't take my "don't call" seriously. Within days, she was everywhere. Texts, DMs, even showing up at my office lobby with excuses like I was nearby. At first I stayed polite. I didn't want drama. But she mistook politeness for hope. One evening, as I was leaving work, she appeared in the parking lot. "We need to talk," she said, blocking my path. I exhaled slowly. "Lily, there's nothing left to talk about." Her tone softened. "Please, just hear me out. I know I messed up. I thought I needed space, but I only needed to grow. I'm different now." I looked at her, really looked. She did seem different, but not in the way she meant. There was a nervous energy beneath her words, like someone used to getting what they wanted who suddenly couldn't. "Lily," I said evenly, "you didn't lose me because you needed space. You lost me because you treated me like a backup plan." Her eyes welled up. "I never saw you that way. Then why was I the first person you came back to when the world stopped clapping?" She blinked, speechless. I stepped aside and opened my car door. But she caught my arm, her voice cracking. "Mark, please. We were good together. You can't just throw it away." I met her eyes. "I did throw it away, Lily. 6 months ago, you just weren't here to see it." She froze. For a moment, the confident woman who'd once declared she needed to explore her options vanished, replaced by someone terrified of the consequences. "I thought you'd wait," she whispered. "I did," I said quietly, until I realized waiting was just another form of self-destruction. I got in the car and started the engine. She stood there, staring as I pulled away, headlights reflecting off tears she couldn't hide. That night, my phone exploded with messages. Anger, guilt, nostalgia, all of them spilling into one desperate stream. You can't just erase 3 years. After everything we've been through, you're heartless. But I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Her words weren't for me. They were her way of fighting the silence she'd created. Then, 2 days later, she crossed a line. She showed up at my parents' house. My mom called, confused. "Mark, is everything okay?" Lily came by saying you two were working things out, that was it. Texted Lily one final message: "Don't show up anywhere near my family again. Whatever we were ended when you chose yourself over us." Her reply came fast. "You'll regret this." I didn't. Because the truth was, she wasn't mourning Mish. It was mourning the version of herself that looked better standing next to me. I was done being her reflection. The silence didn't last long. Within a week, Lily's regret had turned into something louder, public. Mutual friends started reaching out. "Hey man, Lily's been posting stuff about you," one messaged. "Says you abandoned her when she needed you most." I checked her page out of morbid curiosity. There it was, carousel of emotional posts. Sad quotes about people changing, blurry selfies captioned, "Some lessons come too late." She even posted an old photo of us with the caption, "He forgot who we were." I didn't comment, didn't engage. But the comments section did half sympathy, half confusion. A few people even tagged me asking what happened. I ignored them all. Still I won't. Seeing our private history turned into her public pity party hit a nerve. She was rewriting the story, casting herself as the heartbroken one who'd been abandoned after exploring, but the truth didn't need defending. It had already played out. That weekend I ran into one of our old friends, Mia, at a local café. She glanced around before sitting across from me. "Okay, I have to ask. Did you really cut her off completely?" "Yeah," I said simply. "She's not handling it well," Mia said carefully. "She thought you'd always be there. Now she's realizing she'd burned the bridge while standing on it." I nodded, sipping my coffee. "That's not my problem anymore." Mia smiled faintly. "Good. Because she's been trying to make it yours again, apparently." Lily had been calling mutual friends, trying to accidentally run into me at events, even asking my coworkers about me. It was like she couldn't accept that I'd moved on, not just from her, but from the version of myself that needed her validation. And honestly, I didn't even feel angry anymore, just tired. That night she texted one last time. "I know I messed up, but can't we at least be friends?" I stared at the screen, thinking about how easily I would have said yes a year ago. But growth means choosing peace over comfort. So I replied, "No, Lily. Friends don't disappear when love gets inconvenient." There was no reply after that, just a long, empty silence that finally felt permanent. The next morning, I woke up to find she'd deleted every post about me. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was acceptance. Either way, it was closure. For months, she'd been chasing the idea of freedom, only to realize that freedom without loyalty isn't independence, it's isolation. And as I sat there, coffee in hand, sun streaming through the blinds, I realized the chaos had ended not because she stopped reaching out, but because I stopped reaching back. 6 months after the last message, my life looked nothing like the one Lily had left behind. The apartment that once echoed with arguments now hummed with calm. I'd repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, even started growing plants, something she always said I'd forget to water. Turns out I didn't. Everything was thriving, including me. It wasn't that I hated Lily. I didn't. What I hated was the version of myself. I'd been with her, the guy who always waited, who accepted crumbs and called it devotion. The guy who thought love was supposed to hurt before it felt real. Now, I understood better. Love isn't about clinging tighter when someone pulls away. It's about knowing when to let go with grace. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into her mother at the grocery store. She smiled politely but looked uneasy. "Mark," she said, "Lily told me what happened. She regrets a lot." I nodded, offering a small smile. "We both learned something, I think." "She said you changed," her mother added softly. "Yeah," I said, "finally grew up." We parted ways, and that was that. No dramatic reunion, no lingering tension. Just two people from different lives crossing paths in passing. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. I thought about how Lily once told me she needed to explore her options. She wanted freedom. And in chasing it, she'd lost the one person who gave her stability. Funny thing is, she was right about needing to explore. We both did. The difference was, I explored who I could become without her, and I liked what I found. I'd learned that closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you create when you stop waiting for an apology that'll never come. A few months later, I met someone new. She was nothing like Lily. Quiet confidence, grounded, kind without pretense. When I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious yet, she smiled and said, "That's fine. Let's just be real." For the first time, love didn't feel like a gamble. It felt like balance. Sometimes when memories of Lily flicker through my mind, they don't sting anymore, just remind me how far I've come. The chaos she left behind used to feel like a wound. Now it feels like a scar proof that I healed. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that losing someone who doesn't value you isn't a tragedy, it's a turning point. She went out searching for herself and lost me. I stayed still, rebuilt, and found myself. In the quiet that followed, I realized something simple and freeing. I didn't need her to come back. I just needed me to stay gone. If you've made it this far, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.